did the Resurrection Stone come from the Veil? Hey, brother! Guys, let's talk about the Deathly Hallows, shall we? They are so important to the end of the story that sometimes I forget they aren't even introduced until the final book where they get the major spotlight. Obviously, we've been introduced to all three before knowing their significance, even if we never had any primary reason to assume they were important. Dumbledore himself wields the Elder Wand. The Resurrection Stone first appears when Dumbledore shows Harry memories of the Gaunt family, and Harry comes into possession of the Invisibility Cloak all the way back in year 1. But the origins of these three creations are oddly muddy in comparison to their importance. Like, even in Deathly Hallows, we're given two separate possibilities. First, from the Tales of Beedle the Bard, where they're gifts from death themselves and imbued with great power. And then second, at King's Cross, where Dumbledore asserts his own commentary. So it's true? Asked Harry. All of it? The Peverell brothers? Were the three brothers of the tale? Oh, yes, I think so. Whether they met death on a lonely road, I think it more likely the Peverell brothers were simply gifted, dangerous wizards who succeeded in creating those powerful objects. And when it comes to Dumbledore and his guesses, we're usually inclined to assume his interpretation of events is likely more accurate, especially when the alternative in this case is a fairy tale.
Come on. Babbity Rabbity. No?
Although, I guess on that same note, Dumbledore also points out, of house elves and children tales, of love, loyalty, and innocence, Voldemort knows and understands nothing. Nothing! That they all have a power beyond his own. Well, now, see, I've been painted into a corner. Curse you, Dumbledore! So where does that leave us with the Hallows? Was it magical discovery? Invention? Gift from death? Well, today we're going to examine the origins of all three Deathly Hallows and how they were created.
Hey, brother!
Where did the Deathly Hallows come from? For the sake of this video, we're going to assume it's not from death themselves, because, well, if so, then we already know the story. That death took a branch from a nearby elder tree and crafted a wand that must win all duels for its master and gave it to Antioch, the first brother. They took a stone from the river with the power to recall the dead and gave it to Cadmus, the second brother. And lastly, Death gave up his very own cloak of invisibility to Ignotus, the third brother. And that's it. End of video. No, wait, please come back. We're not done. And whilst that's a good fairy tale, Dumbledore seems to think it's more likely that the brothers created these objects, but also seems content with that explanation without, offering any clue as to how he thinks they did it.
It was like magic!
But we are not content, and we want, nay, need answers. And the thing I always find unusual with ancient magical inventions like the Deathly Hallows is that despite being made so long ago, no modern witches or wizards has yet been able to recreate what they do, despite magical knowledge being, more and more available and shared as time goes on. But then what are we supposed to believe? That, since then, despite the legend of these items existing, that nobody else wants more powerful wands or to be able to recall loved ones or make better invisibility cloaks? I mean, in just the first 3 years that Harry's at school, he goes from owning the best racing broom on the market, the Nimbus 2000, to being outstripped the very next year by the Nimbus 2001, to then outstripping that with the Firebolt. I mean, racing broom technology is advancing at the speed of, Firebolt, whilst invisibility cloak tech has been stuck for hundreds of years. It doesn't add up. I mean, granted, sports are a great motivator, and nobody liked that invisible soccer game we hosted. Whatever, just lots of tripping and losing the ball, and we're diving down. We're still not even sure who won or where Franklin is. The point is, the failure of the wizarding world to recreate these objects is not likely because of a lack of know-how, but because the objects were created under either rare circumstances or with rare materials, or both. So, with that in mind, we asked ourselves, what rare materials or events did the brothers have access to? And for that, we actually had to turn back to the fairy tale, which says they met death while traveling along a lonely, winding road at either midnight or twilight, depending on who you ask.
Twilight's fine. Better, actually.
I mean, like, I personally prefer midnight, although I will admit that Twilight does have some great death potential.
Kill the stag! Avada Kedavra!
You're not gonna let this go, are you?
My boy! And death gives them the 3 Hallows. But, again, we're assuming death is not real for this theory. So, who or what could they have met? Do we have anything else in Harry Potter that either is or represents death? And in fact, we do. The Veil. The literal portal to death found deep in the Department of Mysteries. And its location there is pretty relevant to this theory because, little known fact, the Ministry is located where it is specifically because the Veil was discovered there. Obviously, not the kind of thing you want just anyone wandering through, eh? You know, best make it pretty hard to get to, eh? Not sure why I needed to be Canadian for that bit, but I stand by it. I go betcha. So, pretty hard to get to, at least since the Ministry's been there. But before that, you could say that the brothers encountered death, meaning they found the Veil. Heck, the Veil is even at the bottom of a great pit. Like, maybe the brothers genuinely made the bridge from the story to cross it, and then, you know, heard the whispers, the voice of death.
This is the skin of a killer, Bill.
And before we continue, I do want to give a brief shout out to one of our patrons, Tyler Borstoff, over on Through the Gryffindor, who asked us in a recent Owlry if it was possible the Resurrection Stone came from the Veil itself. Because I'll just say, it sent us down quite a rabbit hole, and ultimately, I very much liked this idea and found it made more and more sense the more we thought about it. Because specifically connecting the Veil and the Resurrection Stone isn't hard. There's some extremely connective tissue. But y'all, we need to pause right there to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Uncommon Goods. I mean, the Peveril brothers might have come across some very uncommon goods in the Deathly Hallows, but we can't all meet death on a lonely road and get, like, unique artifacts, can we? But we do need some uncommon goods, and the holidays are on the horizon. Now, back in our younger years, Ben and our dear friends had quite the tradition when it came to how we shared in the festive spirit. Uncommon wrapping was the name of the game. We would literally like bury each other's gifts underground, like inside of massive rubber band balls, spray foam, duct tape, shrink wrap. One time, even a lionfish was used to guard another gift. You had to get past the lionfish. But these days, I like to think we've matured, and now the name of the game is Uncommon Goods. Uncommon Goods has a brilliant selection of some of the most unexpected, unique, and impressive gifts you can track down this holiday season. Like, personally, I'm the proud owner of a popcorn bowl with a kernel sifter at the bottom, so there's no more, like, tooth-breaking handfuls of corn, which is great, because if you know me, you know that I, love popcorn. But the list goes on. There's like NFL game day bingo cards, murder mystery jigsaw puzzles. Guys, they have got a cast iron potato baker for the Gryffindor in your life. Honestly, if you're not going to set your loved ones' gifts in concrete, and I think you should at least find them something special so that when they break into that block, there's something cool in there. So don't wait. Cross those names off your list before the rush. And if you want to get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/supercarlin. That is uncommongoods.com/supercarlin for 15% off. Uncommon Goods. We're all out of the ordinary.
You're just as sane as I am.
Here's how the Resurrection Stone is said to work. To his amazement and his delight, the figure of the girl he had once hoped to marry before her untimely death appeared at once before him. Yet she was sad and cold, separated from him as by a veil. Though she had returned to the mortal world, she did not truly belong there and suffered. As by a veil. That is very carefully worded, if you ask me, because what it sounds like is that when you use the Resurrection Stone, what you are really doing is summoning someone through the veil itself, and as long as you are using the stone, they are pulled through. But as soon as you stop, they get sucked back to where they belong on the other side. I like to think it actually makes that noise too. In fact, it definitely does. Let's just assume. It's actually the exact opposite of how Horcrux works, where when you die, the rest of you wants to go through the veil, but the Horcrux anchors you here, like a permanent resurrection stone. Unless some kid in glasses comes along and smashes them all up. Rude! But if that's the case, then it sounds to me like Voldemort must be constantly suffering. Almost like he's living a cursed life.
A half-life. A cursed life.
But who would choose such a life?
Can you think of no one?
And the real irony here is that he turns the stone into a Horcrux, thus making it act as like a giant inverse of itself. It's almost like he doesn't understand death. But so that it makes sense to me that the reason the resurrection stone can, pull someone through the veil is because the stone itself has existed on both sides of it. Like, it used to be part of the arch. Here's the other thing. The arch appears to almost be naturally occurring. Like, nobody built it, it just exists. But then it would have, no reason to be so crumbly or tattered. Like, this is an everlasting portal to death. It shouldn't be subject to tawdry things like aging.
You said.
But so then the reason it looks crumbled at all is because the three brothers messed with it and took a stone, which became the resurrection stone. So death, the veil, gave them the Hallow. Which brings me to the Invisibility Cloak, because if this theory is right, the veil must have given them all three objects in some way, shape, or form. And, not for nothing, but part of the veil is a cloth, like the curtain hanging in the archway. And how is that curtain described? The archway was hung with a tattered black curtain or veil, which, despite the complete stillness of the cold surrounding air, was fluttering very slightly, as though it had just been touched. Tattered, as in torn, as in some of it is missing? How? Where did the missing cloth go?
My body's gone.
And it gets better, because what does the cloak in the Tale of the Three Brothers do? It hides you from death. But what does the curtain on the veil do? It hides death from you. You can't see through the other side, even if you walk all the way around it. But I hear you. You might be asking now, wait a minute, how would they harvest the stone or the rock from the veil? Like, if you handled either, wouldn't you kill your hand or maybe even yourself?
The tale is thrilling, if I say so myself.
Sounds like we're in agreement. You'd need some kind of, extra powerful tool. One as strong as the veil itself.
The only thing hard enough to penetrate it is itself.
Enter the Elder Wand, the wand capable of defeating death, or at least, taking a rock and cloth away from it. But how could the veil produce the wand, you ask? I mean, duh, you just throw your wand through it. Done. I don't know what everyone at the ministry isn't doing this. What?
It was like magic.
No, don't worry. I have a different thought that seems maybe a little bit more in line with the canon. Because we were a little more stuck on the Elder Wand. It's definitely the trickiest piece of this puzzle. But we asked ourselves, are there any other examples of a wand powering up in Harry Potter? And of course, there is just one other example. Harry's wand, which, if you recall, is supercharged and able to shoot out powerful golden fire at Voldemort during the Battle of the Seven Potters. But Dumbledore then later explains the wand was actually only super powerful when it's used against Voldemort specifically, because when they do it in the graveyard and the wand's connected, Harry's wand imbibes some of the power of Voldemort's wand. My dear boy, its remarkable effects were directed only at Voldemort, who had tampered so ill-advisedly with the deepest laws of magic. Only toward him was that wand abnormally powerful. Otherwise, it was a wand like any other, though a good one, I am sure. And the really essential piece of magic involved to achieve this particular outcome is priori incantatem, the phenomenon that occurs when two brother wands are forced to duel. So, if the stone works because it existed on both sides of the veil, and the cloak works because it existed on both sides of the veil, then how do we get the wand to behave the same? Well, we have to have two brother wands fight through the veil. That's one option. Or maybe Antioch just points his wand straight at the veil, and because he has a Thestral core, the curtain itself fights back. Like, you can only see Thestrals if you see death. That's death. Meets itself. Or heck, if he's casting Avada Kedavra, then the spell itself is the core. It's like death meeting death, right? Thus, the golden beads form, and Antioch is able to force them back through the veil, possibly damaging it in the process, and boom, now his wand is supercharged like Harry's. In fact, it even matches the story, because it's a wand worthy of a wizard who had conquered death. Unlike Harry's wand, however, it's not targeted at only one other wizard. Its power is targeted at death, meaning it would win duels because that's when you're against death. But then in other ways, it's still just a regular wand, though a good one, I'm sure. And indeed, that's what we see happen when Harry and Voldemort face off in the Great Hall. Harry is the master of wand, he is against death, and so the wand doesn't work and backfires on Voldemort. But then what else do we see the Elder Wand do? Fix wands. Harry's and probably Hagrid's. But that makes sense because, as a sentient being itself, it sees broken wands as dead, which it can fix. The three brothers found death, aka the Veil, and conquered it, each taking a prize afterward. But just like how when Harry and friends are on the dais and they hear the whispers and become entranced and are almost lured to death, the first two brothers are lured back to death anyway by their objects, and nobody has since been able to recreate the objects or their powers because the ministry is built around the arch, which is now so heavily guarded that nobody has access to the appropriate materials. Ooh, look at that wand. Ooh, dead low. It doesn't work. I think the wand is... Oh. Guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. Don't forget to leave a like on it if you haven't already. If you want to see a different way, possibly the Resurrection Stone was created, you can check out this video right over here. But otherwise, until next time, Ben, I will see you in another life.